Hello and welcome everyone to episode 139 of Man and Machine here with the PeakBot team and Mark Phillips from Harvested Financial. Happy Monday morning to everybody. We need some music in here.
I got it.
Freaking out. Hope everybody had a great weekend. If you're here in the Northeast, it's hot. We were just talking about that. I hate to talk about the weather, but it's one thing we can all share. It is very hot here, and it's going to be really hot for the next few days, and then just rain. Okay, we'll get out of it. Everybody's going to be okay. Very excited to get into it today. We got a lot to talk about. Stock in real life. We're going to be talking about our favorite strategy, still our favorite strategy, King Condor, and how it's been absolutely crushing it. We can take a look at some of the results, and Ben and Mark are going to be talking a little bit more about what went into building the strategy, specifically about VIX today and some of the details there. So let's get into it. However, I am going to just throw us off here a little bit. Mark, best thing you ate this weekend, please.
I did a skirt steak last night. Very just classic salt and butter, but it was delicious.
Nice. What were your sides?
Potatoes and green beans.
Awesome. Yeah, real meat and potatoes kind of guy. No. Ben, you quickly?
I didn't eat anything of note over the weekend.
Oh, man. All right.
Just a bunch of barbecue, like hot dogs, hamburgers.
Oh, that's
all the junk food.
Pretty good.
That's arguably my favorite meal.
Burgers are my favorite meal all time.
Yeah, no doubt. Good Bubba Burger. By the way, I just want to say, I moved off of the Kraft single American cheese on burgers for a little while because I thought I was thought I was somebody who I wasn't. What a silly move. There's no better cheese for a cheeseburger than your American cheese single. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Let's get into it. We were just talking backstage. Ben, I don't know what you think. I'm a results guy. I was just going to share my returns over the last few weeks. I've been making about 1.5% over the last few weeks here. Some red weeks as well. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit later when we got more people joining because I know they're going to want to see that. So how about I shut up and we get into anything. Get started. Okay.
Why don't we get into stocks in real life?
Let's do it.
We've got Hershey's on the docket today. That's ticker HSY. Now, a lot of people, of course, will think about Hershey, the candy company, when you think about Hershey's. However, if you grew up in the Northeast, specifically around this area, I don't know about you, Dillon, but I tend to think of Hershey Park, the amusement park. And I don't know if everybody knows that exists. There's a theme park. There's a amusement park based around Hershey's. Yeah. That's in Pennsylvania.
It is. It is the largest amusement park in Pennsylvania. It is in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Not only do they have their own amusement park, which might I say, pretty good amusement park as far as comparing to other ones in this area. I'm a big Knoebels guy for anybody who's familiar. But yeah, Chocolate Town over in Hershey's is a big deal. Did we go there, Ben, collectively for a school trip in high school or something? I feel like we did.
You guys did. This was before I joined you.
Gotcha, right. Yeah. I won't expose you here, Ben, unless you want to do that yourself. But yeah, no, Hershey's huge company. I'm pulling up the IPO date. Do we have any guesses on Hershey IPO?
Man, I feel like Hershey's been around forever.
Yeah, I want to say this is the 30s.
Okay.
I'm going to go with I'm going to say they were privately held for a while, and then I'm going to say they probably IPO'd in the 70s. I'm going 70s.
Okay, Mark, any final guesses on that?
No, I actually cheated and I looked, so I can't really.
And you're disappointed. Yeah, so if you're getting what I'm getting, Mark, I'm seeing 1985.
That's what I see too, yeah.
Yes, the stock opened at a split adjusted price of $1.40 on July 1st, 1985. So I haven't looked at the chart, but it's telling me here it's trading upwards of $171. We're taking a closer look at that. But we talked a little bit about our experience with the town. There's also a hockey team. There's a minor league hockey team in Hershey, PA. I think they're the Bears, Hershey Bears, famously known for the teddy bear toss around minor league hockey. If we have any fans watching, Ben, is that a ridiculous one-day bar there at the end? Oh, okay.
No, I was looking at a 5-minute chart.
Mark, fan of Hershey's or Hershey? See, now I feel like I'm saying it wrong.
No, not particularly. I think their chocolate's pretty weak.
Okay.
I much prefer like a darker chocolate.
Fair. I'm the same way. I would prefer a dark chocolate over a milk chocolate, but I don't think there's another type of chocolate you can put on a s'mores.
No,
Would you agree? Right, like you have to go with the bricks, three to four bricks on a s'more. If you do anything else, I'm looking at you a little weird.
All right, so
and the kiss is iconic, of course.
Of course, yeah, yes.
Hear this out for s'mores. So my nephews, this isn't their invention, but this is something that they bring to the family bonfires now.
Okay.
Kit Kats. They'll put Kit Kats on a graham cracker with a marshmallow. To me, it's a game changer.
You might have just ruined me.
Yeah.
Is that a Hershey owned product?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up. I feel like it's not.
It's Nestle. Nestle owns Kit Kats. Oh, and it's produced under license by the Hershey Company.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it is Hershey. All right. Wow. All right. Hey, Mark, Kit Kat guy?
I do like a Kit Kat. Yeah.
Can I break you off a piece, please?
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this then. I think Hershey, from a marketing standpoint, has at least two of the most iconic commercials of all time. If we're going to say that Hershey was responsible, maybe it was Nestle's marketing team. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar is one of the best lines and the most sticky lines of all time. Yeah. And do you guys know the Hershey Kiss jingle commercial that plays around the holidays every single year for the last 20 years?
No.
Oh, come on. Yes, you do.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to pull it up. Hopefully we don't get copyright infringements or whatever for playing this, because I'm gonna. Mark, do you know what I'm talking about? The Hershey Kiss jingle?
I don't think I do.
I'm really upset.
I'm looking at Hershey's stable though. I mean, they have some. They're stacked, right? You
list it off. Give us some. Reese's,
Twizzlers, Jolly Rancher, Mounds, Milk Duds, like the paydays. They make some good candy.
I guess there's a huge. I guess there's a couple huge conglomerates in the space. But yeah, oh my God, Bubble Yum, Whoppers.
Well, break me off the pieces, classic. But like Almond Joy's got nuts, Mounds don't. Like that. That's I still think of that every single time I look at the candy bar aisle. I'm like, which one do I want? No, I want nuts.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Oh, Good and Plenty's. All right, Heath Bar. Yeah, they've got themselves covered here pretty good. All right, so let's just pull this out. This is a Hershey's Kiss commercial. This video was posted 16 years ago. So let's just see here. Ben, can you pull your screen down? I'm going to try to go. No, that's not working. All right, never mind. It's not going to work because I'm not going to get the audio. But let me just show you guys what I'm talking about, so at least you can see it. It's this Hershey Kiss commercial. Because we wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you.
Do they say Kissmas instead? Because that would make more sense.
No, it's just bells ringing. You know what? Sorry, guys, didn't work. But yeah, they have some unbelievable marketing content. Let's look at their stock. Looks like we've been in a bearish slide here. Ben, what are we looking at?
Pretty big skid, topping out at about 275-ish back in 2023. If we zoom out even more, I always like to look at the COVID effect and see what happened to these companies during COVID. So here's COVID. Looks like we dropped from 160 down to 112, but very quickly shot back up because people got to have their chocolate, right? There's not going to be any sort of worldwide disease that's going to stop people from eating their chocolate. Pop back up, pop back down, pop back up again, and then kind of on the way up, all the way to the top for quite some time.
Wow.
So if you got in during the COVID era, call it 150. Let's say you got in at 150. You could have rode this thing all the way up until 275, until all of your hopes and dreams came crashing back down. Now, I wonder what happened in 2023 that caused this massive skid from 275 down to, call it 190, right? That's a pretty significant drop.
Looking it up
if there's
here.
any insight that we can gain from that.
Rising cocoa prices and potentially supply chain issues. That's AI, who knows, but
could be the case.
Consumer preferences.
We're still on that skid, though. We are still on that skid. What do the options prices look like for Hershey's?
Let's take a look. And I want to know, Mark, was this ever one? I mean, that came into your universe ever?
No, I kind of had to do a little bit of looking at this before. I don't believe I've ever traded Hershey before.
Have you ever been to Hershey Park?
I have. I went for a family reunion last year.
Oh, wow. Nice. They have some pretty serious rides.
Yeah, unfortunately, the age of the kids precluded most of the fun ones. It's more like, I mean, they've got some legit rides, like you say, right? We ended up at Dutch Wonderland for the little ones down the block.
Yeah. Pretty good food. I don't know. I feel like I was young when I was there last, and I just would have eaten anything. But I feel like they have some pretty good food out there.
Don't remember. Didn't
Gotcha.
actually. Don't think we ate there.
Okay, gotcha. That's about the only thing I'm looking for when I go to an amusement park these days. Is give me the food. Give me the fast, fried food.
If you're traveling just for food, there are better places to go than an amusement park, though.
Yeah, no, there are. Well, you ever been to Knoebels?
I have not. No.
Okay, well, we'll talk after the show. And for anybody who does know what Knoebels is, they understand.
So this is Hershey's options chain expiring this Friday. Now I'm going to look at selling a call spread because it looks like we're bullish overall. So it does look like there's quite a big spread here between the bid and the ask. We'll probably see that tighten up a little bit when the market opens. But let's just say, for example, we were going to trade the 175 strike, sell that, and buy the 177.5, send that over to our ticket there. That was roughly around the 30 delta to collect about $1.20 in premium. Now, again, the spread's a little bit wide, so I don't know how reliable that $1.20 number is. But hey, I'd love to earn $1.20 on a 250 spread at the 30 delta. Those numbers seem almost too good to be true right there.
I mapped it.
If that's the case when the market opens, I might get into this position.
I was going to say, here it is mapped. So Ben, you said 175 was your sold call?
Yes.
So I have the bought one here as well with another orange line, but as you can see here, it's a pretty big decline back in March. It has not been able to break that 175 level. How much is that paying?
Right now, I'm showing $1.20 on my screen, on my Tradier account.
For $2.50 spread?
For $2.50 spread at the 30 delta. I think the 175, I mean, we'll see where we open, but at least at the close, I don't know how much we moved over the weekend. At least at the close on Friday, this delta was the 31 delta.
From a technical analysis standpoint, it looks relatively neutral. Mark, looking at this, and and here's some analyst ratings kind of going both ways on it, honestly. Mark, looking at this, to me, that seems like a lot of premium for this Friday with a good, good $5 breathing room, maybe, I guess $4. What do you think about this potential idea here?
Not knowing enough about the stock and the vol history, I have to trust the market and say it's probably a coin flip.
Yeah, fair.
I realize that's a non-answer, but
no, it's a good non-answer though. It is. I can't get over this. I can't get over this many days underneath that strike price. I am going to take a look at this when the trend spread watch list repopulates this morning with new market data. I'm going to see if it's on there, and then if it is, I might even use that as fate or a double confirmation and take. I really like that position, honestly. Not financial advice, but we'll never look at that. Any other thoughts on Hershey before we move on? I'd be interested to know, maybe dive into that category a little bit more. I know there's some other huge ones, as we kind of said, in the industry. I forget which other ones are publicly traded, but
well, there's Mondelez, which I don't think they're traded on the U.S. markets. They might be traded elsewhere.
That's another big one.
Huge. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I think we can move on into the King Condor session here, if we'd like.
Cool. We can do that. Let's get that up on screen. And I think there's only going to be maybe 2, maybe 3 more weeks on the King Condor bot. And then we'll kind of stitch all of these sessions together, make it a nice tutorial video, kind of show people why we did what we did when creating the King Condor strategy, how we did it, how we tested it, and all the reasoning behind the decisions that were made. So this week, as Dillon mentioned before, we are going to continue talking about VIX. Last week, we talked about VIX movement. Now we're going to talk about VIX limits and see how this impacts the strategy. Now, in my opinion, I don't feel like the VIX limits, and I'm just talking about high limit, low limit. I don't feel like this impacts, and we'll see it, the strategy as much as VIX movement does, but there is an impact. And when you're talking about a couple $1,000 here, a couple $1,000 there on your investment, it's important to take all of that into consideration. So again, this is the King Condor base. And in the King Condor base, we do have a high VIX limit and a low VIX limit, meaning if the VIX is too low, and I think the number is somewhere around 12-ish, 13-ish. If the VIX is below that, then the bot's not going to trade. Now, on the upside, I think it's around 30-ish. If VIX is above 30, let's say, the bot will not trade. So VIX has to be in that range for the bot to trade. So we're actually, usually we take a look at like 2 variations. Today we're going to look at 3 variations. We're going to look at having the lower limit on VIX only, so no cap on the top, having no VIX filter whatsoever, and then having the upper limit only, so we trade when VIX is really low. But before we get into looking at what the results for each of those look like, Mark, I'll pass it off to you to just give a brief overview on having a lower limit on VIX, having no VIX filters, and having an upper limit, and how that kind of could impact the overall structure of the trade.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about this last week when we were just generally overall, the VIX indicator is used to filter out when we think there are good opportunities to be short. And I think, like you said a little bit earlier, Ben, that like the movement is a little more dominated. And, my explanation of that, or the way I sort of think about that, is that when vol is moving a lot or moving more than, our filter level, that generally indicates a repricing of things, a repricing of options. And so when that repricing is happening, that makes me as a seller or buyer of options just generally less confident in the current price. So when things are moving around, that means the market hasn't necessarily settled on a value per se. Whereas the VIX limits here are more about zeroing in on what we think kind of are the bounds of when vol is likely to be stable or when vol is likely to be a good sale. So broadly thinking about, whether we want to bound the VIX on a lower level, that we don't want to sell vol when VIX is below X, because of premium collection. But I also think, in some ways the short dated options are priced more about gamma. What I like about the lower limit is that it's there's more room for vol to move off the base. And so, while I generally like lower vol environments for selling, because I think when vol's low, it's not low enough. Once you get too low, that does create kind of a dynamic where you could see a little bit more movement off that low level. Similarly, on the upper bound, we don't necessarily want to be getting short options when you're seeing VIX environments that are high and where you're seeing high vol of vol. Higher VIX levels are going to have, the more absolute movement generally and more adjustments. So the overall kind of view of lower bound and upper bound is all about isolating the environments when we think, or isolating environments to increase our odds of, being successful in a short strategy.
Awesome.
Excellent. Sorry if I've been getting some feedback on the mic. I'm trying to fix that here now. Apologies.
All good. All good.
And, I think these levels, we currently have them set, remind me where the upper limit is 30 and is the lower limit 12 or 10?
It's 12 or 13. 12 or 13.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't necessarily seen VIX below 12 or 13 in quite a bit. I think that's a whole different conversation, but I think VIX is the floor is getting structurally higher in VIX. But especially with like short dated option strategies, that it's really about like that gamma movement of the 8 or 24 hours that you have remaining on the clock.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and we'll see in just a minute that upper limit, lower limit, it does negatively impact the strategy overall. The overall impact isn't that great, but again, yes, still some things that we want to consider. Are we ready to move on into looking at the different charts?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So the first chart we're going to look at is having the lower limit only, meaning we're only going to, or we will trade even when VIX is super high. So again, here's our baseline, and important to remember these numbers because these are the numbers for comparison because the equity curve looks very similar. So again, we got 25.6 in profit, 53.3 compound annual growth rate, and then 6.7 max drawdown. Now, if we move over to having this upper limit, detached, if we don't have an upper limit on VIX, the P&L drops by $2,000, which again, not too much, but in terms of a percentage, that's about a 7 to 8% drop from where the baseline is. Compound annual growth rate just drops a couple points. The max drawdown bumps up from 6.7 to 9, so that's about a 2.3% increase. Again, not an overly dramatic change to the overall results. And if you look at the equity curve here, it looks very similar. There's only going to be a couple of trades that were cut out because we had a high VIX filter. Now, if we move on to no VIX filter, so we trade when VIX is too high, or we will trade when VIX is high and low. Again, not a huge impact, but okay, 25.6, 53.3, 6.7, those are the numbers that we want to look at. And then we move over here, no VIX filter, 23.1 thousand, 49.6, 9%. So again, a small decrease in P&L, small decrease in compound annual growth rate, and a small increase in max drawdown. Overall, the curve looks pretty much the same. But again, we're trying to give ourselves as much of an edge as we can, especially since this strategy is automated. We want to scrape together as many dollars using a set rule system as we can. And then finally, we've got the upper limit only. So we will trade when VIX drops very low, which again, only adds a few trades, and you can kind of see the trade number here from our current filters, 678 trades, to not including a lower limit, 684 trades. Now it does look like those trades were losses, and we see the P&L drop to $24.9 thousand. Still really great, right? And the compound annual growth rate drops a percentage, drawdown stays the same. So really no impact on the low end. You could argue why not just trade during that time? I mean, the having the filters on earned $700 more over the 3-year test period. So not a huge impact. Again, the biggest impact that we're going to find is going to be in the VIX movement, when we're just looking at VIX in a silo.
And like, I think that really underscores like something about the efficiency of markets, right? And what I was saying before about repricing, that like markets are decent at pricing when vol's high, they're decent when pricing when it's in the middle, and they're decent when it's low. So like the marginal impact of filtering out these levels is relatively low, like especially in the big construct. But that real impact is coming from movement and repricing. And when markets are in kind of a shifting of regimes of, the volatility pricing, that's when it's most difficult and prices are at least certain. So, I always like when a backtest finding sort of underscores what you expect out of markets.
Yep, definitely. And like we see with all of these variations, low VIX, no VIX, or high VIX, the overall curve is pretty much the same. Minor impacts, again, speaks to the robustness of the strategy as well. But that's about it. We're going to stick to our high and low filters just because we want to give our subscribers the maximum amount of opportunity, the maximum amount, and based on what we've seen in the past. Of course, past results are not indicative of future results, but they help us learn about the characteristics of a strategy, and we can make our own decisions on whether that's a good strategy or not, and if we want to trade that strategy or not. So there's not much left on. Yeah, go ahead, Dillon.
I'm so sorry. I know you weren't expecting me to tune in. One thing I would like to say, with those equity curves being somewhat similar based on the different limits that are or are not set, we're playing the defense here, right? Because I think it can be argued that the markets that we've seen in years past versus the market that we've seen in the last year and what we may see for future years, the volatility is all over the place. So it could be 1 day or 2 days throughout the year that really impact your overall P&L. And we want to try to play as much defense as we can on that, at least from a strategic standpoint for building the bot. So I just wanted to put that out there. A lot of things happening, not only here, but across the globe that can impact.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good point because we're always looking at our criteria that we're trading off of. We always say if you're working with trading, if you're using trading bots, and your bot provider isn't constantly monitoring your bots and the underlying logic, then maybe look somewhere else because it's very important to stay up to date on all that type of information.
What I'd like to do, if I can, one more time, I took the time while you guys were doing a deep dive there to pull my results. I have two different I have two different accounts that I am trading King Condor on, okay? And I pulled some results since the beginning of April. When basically around the time I started trading King Condor. So these are the two accounts here. So I've got some numbers. We can see on the left-hand side here, this is one account, all right? Dates, account balance in the differences. And then this is another account over here. All right, so this account here on the left-hand side, this is the one you would normally see me trading with on this live show. I'm up $3,096 since April 7th, which is a 24.9% return. Pumped about that. Again, that's mostly on one King Condor. Just recently bumped that up to 2. I've only been in one trade, I think, with it running 2 contracts. And then I'm wheeling Walmart. The occasional trend spread trade. I looked at that Hershey trade again. I'm going to put an order out there and see if I can get filled. I like it too much. So anyway, again, up almost $3,100 here, 24.9%. And then on the left-hand side here, this is my other account, up 29.8% with a total gain of $3,521. Again, almost all on the back of the King Condor strategy. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know people are results focused. Those are, of course, my tracking sheets. We've got nothing to hide. We share all the accounts and results and everything on the show. So I wanted to put that out there. We're sitting here talking about the bot and how it's been built. I'm talking about the gravy it's bringing home. So
love it.
Just want to put that out there.
Cool. All right. I think we've covered a bunch.
Yeah.
I'd say ready to wrap.
I think we're ready to wrap, barring any full week of trading.
Yeah.
Anything crazy going on this week? I know we want to wrap, but let's just let the good people know if we have anything to look out for this week, at least from an economic standpoint. Last week was heavy. King Condor and a lot of our 0DTE, 1DTE, SPX bots didn't trade at all. And it was a short week, of course, with Juneteenth. So just curious about this.
I mean, the JPOWs giving speeches on Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm not sure about what. I just see that on TradingView right now. I'll have to look into what he's planning on talking about.
But it's not FOMC, right?
It's not FOMC. We've got GDP data on Thursday, PCE and Michigan consumer sentiment on Friday. I mean, the thing that probably worries me the most is the whole situation going on in the Middle East. Is the U.S. going to get involved, or we not? I mean, we are involved now after what happened over the weekend. But we'll just have to monitor and see how that affects the markets. And if things get too volatile, then sometimes the best trade is no trade.
That's for sure. Excellent. Yeah, I think we're good. Mark, unless you had anything else for the people here, I think we are ready to put a bow on this thing.
No, happy trading and another interesting week. I think a lot of people expected down big today, but we're going to open pretty flat. So you never know what these markets are going to throw at you.
Excellent. Well, best luck to everybody with the opportunities out there. Have a great week of trading. And as always, we'll see you at the peak. Take care, everybody.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.